Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's conversation. This is your Retirement Wealth Health Checkup, and it's brought to you by National Seniors and Household Capital. Now, I'm going to be in the background today in the chat room. I can see everyone's using that at the moment, and that's exactly what I want you to do. Now, if you have any troubles with this live stream today, just refresh your page and everything will be okay. And before I kick it off, I just want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connections to lands, water and community. I pay my respects to them and to their cultures and to the elders, both past, present and emerging. Well, I'm not the one on show today. It is all about our incredible panellists. So what I want to do right now is welcome in all our panellists and our host, Ian, Noel, Fiona and Kaye. Can you please all turn on your cameras and mics? Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I'm going to hand it over to you now, Ian. You're the man in control today. Once you turn your camera back on, mate, there you go. You're in. And over to you, my friend, to take over for today's session.
Look, I'm sorry. I seem to be having a tiny bit of trouble turning my camera on there, but I'm not exactly sure what the problem is. But I do want to just very quickly go to our guest today. We've got Kaye Fallick, who's the founder and CEO of Stay Connected, a retirement specialist. Fiona Navarro from Household Capital, who's a retirement specialist as well. And of course, Noel Whittaker, who is the senior member of the panel today. I'm going to tell people your age because I think it's important to remind people that older Australians contribute so much to the community. Noel is in his early 80s and he has been writing and advising and giving people advice since the late 1980s. So 35 years of experience, an absolute wealth of experience there. Now, I just want to start off by also saying that we've got now more than 1,000 people online. So I'm hoping that those people are not having the problem that I've got with, I'll leave myself just up there without the camera at the moment, but I do want to continue the discussion because it's so important to get this underway. We've got 45 minutes and I do want people to ask questions. So remember, you can always ask questions. I'm Chief Advocate with National Seniors Australia. We're hosting the event today and Household Capital are also providing a lot of information that you'll be able to find out after this event, and we'll send out information to all of you. But first, I'd like to ask Kaye, you've said that knowledge is power when it comes to retirement, and we're going to be looking at that issue this morning. How do you find out the information? How do you understand the wealth you have and what to do with it? And of course, how do you cope in a world at the moment where we're talking about inflation going up to 7% and we don't necessarily know how long we're going to live? They're all big questions, but knowledge is power. Why do you say that, Kaye?
Because I think it's easy to be rattled, Ian, and I think what is happening at the moment is there's a lot of media commentary which makes people feel anxious. And I believe that we can be our own best advocates. And the only way we can do this is by understanding where we sit with our retirement income, the rules that apply to our situation, how to apply them, and then to apply them or not. And then we know we've done our own best job. We can't expect other people to do this for us. It just doesn't work.
Well, that's fascinating. So do you think that people can hear people say you've got to become financially literate? And I'm going to move to Fiona Navarro now, who's with Household Capital and a retirement specialist. And Fiona, do you think people have enough financial literacy when they get to retirement age or when they start approaching retirement? Do they understand what they've got effectively and what they need to know?
Well, look, I think, we deal in our business with a lot of retirees and there isn't, one single scenario that suits everyone. But if I talk about the wealth that people have, so, from our perspective, we're talking to a lot of retirees and if you look at the wealth that people actually have, then you've got to sort of take into account the asset that someone lives in, their home. So we know, for example, that 65 to 75% of retiree wealth is actually held in the home. And, and super balances for retirees have been a bit lower because they've missed that sort of wave of super coming in. And so, on average, a retiree in Australia holds about $190,000 in super. But the asset that they hold in their house is considerable, and that's been growing.
Can you give us a rough idea of how much the average house is worth? Because we hear these stories all the time about people going and getting their houses valued and they get quite a surprise. So what's the average house worth?
Yeah, well, look, obviously we've had a period of growth and it's settled back a little bit. But as at now, June this month, so the average home in Australia that a retiree will own is about $752,000, and obviously it's much larger in the big cities. So closer to $1 million plus if you're living in Sydney or in Melbourne particularly. But the regional centres have also experienced quite large growth. So the average property value in a major regional centre is about $600,000. So it's sort of 3 times or more than most people hold in their super or investment assets.
All right. Now, Noel Whittaker, you've been writing about the issues surrounding retirement for 35 years. Have things changed a lot over that time? Because I know that people want advice, but they often don't want to pay for it. Is that changed?
Well, can I just ask, am I on screen? Because I can't see myself on video here. So am I on video?
You're on screen. I can see
fine.
You loud and clear. I'm the one that I can't see myself, but I can see you loud and clear, Noel.
Okay, fair enough. Look, things are changing. The superannuation rules keep on changing. I think the trouble is people don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And that's why they fall into traps. But there's so much resources. There's national seniors. There's various retirees associations which have seminars. There's my books. There's paper columns. There's a wealth of resources there. But I think it's important that people investigate those, because what you don't know is probably the most dangerous thing out there.
Can I just tell you quickly, Noel, a story about a colleague of mine who, when I left my last job, he said, look, I'm going to get out of here too because I'm at retirement age. I went and moved to National Seniors to work with National Seniors, and he packed up and left. And then he contacted me and said, you didn't.
Look, one of them
5.5.
Yeah.
And he spent 6 months without a pension because he hadn't kept up to date with the rules. Just as a piece of basic information, what age can you get the age pension at in Australia today? What's happening next?
It's going up to age 67. I haven't got the tables in front of me, but there's on the website there's a stack of information, calculators and charts. So there's heaps out there. But I get about 100 emails. I get about 100 emails a day. Now, I had an email yesterday from a lady said, look, I can't sleep at night. I withdrew $84,000 from a super to help someone out. They've given me a check for $84,000. I want to put it back in a super, and I'm 68 and I can't do it. I said, yes, but after June 30th you can, because the rules change. It's little things like that. I'm getting a lot of questions about, I've been told there's no work test now to age 75 starting after June 30. There's a work test for deductible contributions, but none for non-deductible contributions. It's just these tiny things that just people don't know.
Well, let's go back to Kaye now. Kaye, you're the founder and CEO of Stay Connected. You've just heard what Noel's been saying there. I mean, let's just go through some of those things that you are entitled to that are available, and how many people know about this. And I'm going to put a sexist question here. Are women better than men at this?
Well, Ian, I will answer the second part first, and I'll answer it anecdotally. Men tend not to read the manual until the cars actually cease to function. Women tend to do the research and read the manual because there's something they may not know. So I think often men are very active and interested in finance and can be very good at it. Of course they can. But women ask questions. And the power of asking questions and remaining curious links back to what Noel said, which is when you don't know what you don't know, if you're a question asker or a newspaper reader, you will find out things you didn't know before. So I actually think financial literacy sounds very heavy to me. It sounds like you need some kind of degree or something like that. I like the idea of being financially curious, remaining curious forever, because the rules are changing, as Noel says, just on a daily basis, it feels like to me. But I think your financial curiosity will lead to your financial capability. And I think the starting point for this audience, so good morning to everybody, is to know where you sit in the retirement income landscape today. To know, for instance, 66% of older Australians currently aged 66 and a half and over are on an age pension. Are you in that 66%? You need to know that. Because if you don't know your situation, you don't know the rules, you've really got to get on top of. And of that 66% who are on a pension, we've got 68% on a full pension, and we've got 32% on a part pension. And again, Noel will tell you, these sliding scale rules and taper rates and so on matter enormously for your eligibility. So are women better than men at this? I think every couple household out there should have a competition and ask each other a few questions on that.
Well, I just want to say that because my dear late departed mother, she left everything up to Dad. And then when Dad died, she relied on my cousin for navigating, as they call it, the system. So I think sometimes you do need someone to help, and she certainly did. But I think the thing that I'd like to come back in now with Fiona is that my mother was living in a house that was worth a lot of money. She was eating No Name's brand sardines down at the supermarket because she said, well, what happens if something goes wrong? And yet that house that she was living in, because it was in a capital city, was worth more than $800,000, and she was scrimping and saving. Do you find that a lot of people who are older are living that sort of asset-rich, income-poor life?
Yeah, absolutely. And we see it regularly. And I think it's a real dilemma, and it's sort of a heartfelt travesty for me, really, that we do have people living in very expensive assets. And I'm going to just say living a sub-optimal life, not a life that they should be living. And I guess that's a bit about, back to Kaye's point, about knowing about what your options are, what's available out there. How can you access the capital that you've got in your home in a moderate conservative way? What are your options, and how can you actually live a better life? And yeah, we do see it a lot. And we actually see a lot of children coming in with their parents and saying, well, look, we want our mum and dad to live a better existence here. And it's not all about the money that's left to us in the end. It's like we really want them to have a much better life. So yes, we do see it a lot, and it's perfectly possible to conservatively use a little bit of that money you've saved up in your house just to have a much better existence.
Look, we're getting a lot of questions coming through online at the moment too, and one of them has just been a little tap on the hand for me for saying leave out generalisations based on sex or age. Everybody is different, so I'll take that on board. But what I'll come back to you, Noel, on this one, is I read a figure the other day that said that around 30% of women, when they get to retirement age, have to. So when we talked about those averages before of 160,000 or 170,000 in super, everyone's very different, aren't they, Noel?
Yes, and look, I've got the pension charts here, which are available on my website for free download, and that's for everybody. But see, a lot of people don't know that if money in super doesn't count until you reach pensionable age. So if the guy's 66 and his wife's 10 years younger, which is not uncommon, if the superannuation is in her name, he can maximise his pension. A lot of people also don't know that the household assets are only garage sale value. So people should not have more than $5,000 for their furniture and fittings. It's little things like that that can make a big difference in your pocket.
That's fascinating. And look, I should get a plug in for National Seniors too, because we've got a concessions calculator there. So that
how good's that too? Yes.
If you are on a pension or you are on a Commonwealth Seniors Health Card, and the rules around that are going to change shortly, you can get different concessions in different states. Now, since we've had that concessions calculator up on the National Seniors website, we've been getting about 50,000 people a month going to it to look at what is available. And that's not surprising, because with cost of living going up at the moment, an prediction of 7% increase in inflation, or an inflation rate of 7%, those concessions are important, aren't they? I'll just go back to Kaye on that one. I mean, in Western Australia, I understand that a Commonwealth Seniors Health Card can give you more than $1,600 in concessions. So it depends where you live.
Well, I did an article on this recently, Ian, and I actually interviewed a couple who'd used it, and their number was about it was more than $2,600. Now, I think that related to certain medical tests, so we're all different again. But, I mean, I think the interesting thing about the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card, when we talk entitlements, I think everybody, a lot of people who are self-funded can think, oh, I'm not entitled to anything. Right? So the uptake of currently of the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card is very low. And the current income limits, as you've alluded to, will change. They were meant to change on July 1, whichever government won the election. The legislation wasn't put in place. So now it has to, we're waiting for Parliament to go back for that to happen. But probably by October or November, self-funded retirees will be eligible for this card if single, if they earn less than $90,000 per annum, or if a couple less than $144,000 per annum. This is a high majority of self-funded retirees. It's an extremely valuable card which can be used in a range of ways. And I know the NSA offers this information and covers off on it, but I would urge people who are self-funded to at least look at these new limits, because it's very likely they'll be able to get that valuable card.
That's wonderful information. Yeah. And Noel, you wanted to add to that?
Well, see, I can't get any cards except the Queensland State Seniors Card, which has no test except your age. And that gives you a third off your registration straight away. And your calculator taught me that I can get $8 a week back in my electricity and gas.
Well, there you go, Noel.
So that was $400 a year just from your calculator.
So you've got the State Seniors Card, the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card, and the Pensioner Card. All of those are there on the calculator. That's the National Seniors calculator. Just put National Seniors Pension Calculator and you'll be able to find all that. We're getting lots of questions coming through this morning. And just a reminder too, that we're talking to Kaye Fallick, founder, CEO of Stay Connected Retirement Specialist, Fiona Navarro from Household Capital, and Noel Whittaker, who doesn't need an introduction, but he's got books everywhere. You can find that information. A lot of the questions that are coming through are looking at some of these things. They're asking some of the basic questions. How do you find super? Well, I think we lost super, isn't there, Noel? Is that right?
Yeah, but there's also a person's asked what's the cut-off point for a couple cut-out, and the chart just says it's 915,500 assets test. You know, so
Gee, Yeah, so you've really got to go and find out the information, and that's the message we're getting through to people this morning. And what we started with this morning was knowledge is power. So go and find out that knowledge and then take the next step. Now, one of the things that I think we should talk about is this business of equity in your home. First of all, the thing to remember is that your home as an asset is actually not counted for the pension in any way, shape or form. That's your primary place of residence. So if you've got a very valuable home, there's a lot of wealth sitting there. And if you want access to that wealth, you can do that through a whole range of things. But one of the things you can do is you can say, well, if I'm in my 70s or 80s, and we should recognise that around 80% of 80-year-olds own their own home, you can sort of do a calculation and say, well, what would happen if over the next 5, 10, 15 years, I needed a bit of extra money to pay for home care, because a lot of people want to stay in their own, they might have a... That's something we hear commonly. So I'd like to just ask Fiona, can someone almost have a trickle of income coming in, and rather than taking a big chunk out? Is there an option there if you want to use a bit of the wealth in your home, especially as house prices seem to be going up and have gone up for quite some time?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, knowledge is power. So it's perfectly possible to access just an income stream out of your home, and or to have an approval for an amount you can access as and when you need it. And the thing to know is that's the absolute best way of using the equity out of your home, because you're only taking what you need as you need it, and you're only accruing interest on the money you actually use. And that's definitively the best way of using your home equity. And look, the other alternatives, obviously, to access your home equity is downsizing. And I would just say that, you know, if you can, that's another option. We routinely speak to a lot of people where the thing about downsizing, it's really hard to stay often in your community where your friends and your family are, the people that matter to you. And there's a cost involved in doing that, or you might not be ready to do it just yet, but your plan is to do it later. So using your home equity doesn't have to be a long-term strategy. You know, it can just be a point in time where you're still young, healthy and vibrant, you want to enjoy your life, and then maybe you're planning to downsize in the future. So yes, most definitely you can be approved and just draw things gradually. And of course, there's the government home equity access scheme as well that's available. If all you need is a little bit of income, that might fill the bill.
Now, one of the questions that's come through on this is if you are starting to draw some income either through the home equity access scheme through the government, or you've gone to Household Capital or a similar organisation and said, look, I'd like to have $10,000 because I want to put the new roof on the house, or you probably need 20,000, but whatever you want to do, is that counted as money that will affect your pension? Now, is that going to be a problem or not?
Usually, well, in fact, I've never seen a client where that's a problem. You need to manage that. But if you're taking an income stream, it does not impact your Centrelink pension at all.
All right. And look, I'm just getting another quick question. We've just come in on this one, and I would like to get to it very quickly, because there are obviously, if you've got 80% of 80-year-olds owning their own home, you've got 20% of people who don't own their own home. And I think it's down to about 25% that don't own their own home when they get to pension age. And I know that, Kaye, you wanted to talk about this. What's the situation like for someone who's renting? Because they're the most likely to be really struggling. What assistance can they get?
Well, there is the rental supplement, which is part of the pension. I mean, back in the day when I was working with Your Life Choices website, we talked about retirement tribes, Ian, and we looked at people who are renting on an age pension. And depending, there's been different supplements over the COVID period. But generally speaking, if that is the only form of income, people in that situation are living pretty well close to what's considered the poverty line. And it's tough. And I just felt this discussion has to acknowledge the situation for people who are renting. If anything, the rental market is tightening ever further. I can say that because I have a daughter who's renting, and it's only if you go and look at properties and try and take out a lease, you understand the competition out there. And in major cities, the prices are sky high. So I think it's really important to acknowledge that, to say, yes, there are rental supplements. And I think when you're on a very limited income and you don't own your own property, I think it might be worth looking at some of the share situations if that suits you. But it goes back to knowing rules, knowing entitlements, and really you have to make every penny count even harder. The less you have, the more important it is to understand every concession. I think Noel bringing up the state senior cards, that's really valuable because they're very particular to our different states. They've all got their own websites. You can go to a library if you don't own a computer.
No. Can I just tell you? I'll jump in there quickly. That's why we spend all the money at National Seniors to build our National Seniors concessions calculator. So if you go on that website, you can actually put in your address and your location, and it will show you what you get in Queensland compared to Victoria, compared to each state. So it's a one-stop shop there, the National Seniors Concessions Calculator. So, but if you haven't got a computer, go to a library, as you say, and ask them to put in National Seniors Concession Calculator.
And additionally, Ian, the old saying, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. I've recently been on leave and travelling. I would often ask for a discount. I didn't say I want a seniors discount. I just said, is that the best price you can do? I find it surprising how often people go, oh, well, I'll knock whatever it is off the price. So I think when you're on very limited money, making every cent count can mean saying, can you do a better price for me?
Well, that's excellent. And look, we're getting lots of questions coming in. One says, eating your house, sad, isn't it? I mean, let's just go back to Noel on that. Noel, is that a sad situation or not?
Well, I mean, it's a question of making the best of what you've got. If you've got an $800,000 house, why not use part of that to give yourself a decent life? But it depends entirely on your own circumstances.
And of course, you've got more and more people living at home, often without family. So it's not as if they're going to be passing it on to the next generation, which often people worry about, oh, we've got to pass it on to the next generation. So can I just ask you, Fiona, from Household Capital, I mean, is that a concern that a lot of people have? They say, well, look, if I start drawing down on some of the house, I'm thinking about my children and my grandchildren. I want to help them get into the housing market.
Yeah, that is obviously a concern for people. And what I'd say is that if you're only needing a little bit of your equity, your home's going to still continue to grow, right? So the vast majority of people will have a very large amount to leave to their children still, and you can only actually borrow a very small amount of your equity. So you can't really put yourself in a difficult position, and it's highly protected with regulations. So that would be my first point. But my second point would be that there are a lot of people that we talk to who actually want to help their children, earlier. And that's a reverse scenario. You've got a lot of equity. You might have other assets. You would prefer to help your children now get into the housing market, rather than wait until you're no longer there, because you get to see the benefit of doing that. And that's also a possibility for people. And we're doing a lot of that, helping children getting into deposits onto homes, helping children getting into bigger homes, paying grandchildren's school fees. There's a whole, it depends on the individual, what your priorities are in your life, what you're dealing with, and what's important to you. And then I think, yeah.
Look, we're getting a lot of questions about an organisation called Retirement Essentials, and I know that National Seniors has been involved in a partnership with them. One of the advantages of that group, Retirement Essentials, is that many people don't get their act together to put all the paperwork together, because it is a complex, complicated social security system, and Retirement Essentials will actually charge you for the service, but it's a bit like going to an accountant when you do your tax return. You can do your tax return yourself, or you can go to an accountant. It'd be lovely if we had a system that was so simple you could all fill out your pension application form or your Commonwealth health card application form yourself. But I did go to someone's house and do that the other day. It took me 2 hours to get all the paperwork together to help them with the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card. Noel, you've got your hand up?
Yeah, also they're very reasonable fees. I mean, they're great people and their fees are very, very reasonable.
Mm.
Yes, well, and it does give you the, another friend of mine who actually used them, they kept bringing him up and saying, can you please give us a copy of your birth certificate? You haven't done that yet, you know, so they were nudging him along to get him to do the work, yeah.
I think, Ian, the interesting point is people think they've applied for the pension and, you know, they await the knowledge whether they're eligible or not, until every piece of documentation, if you apply online, until every document is uploaded, Centrelink doesn't say your application has started. So you can lose income on that. If you eventually get it, it may start 4 weeks later than you thought you started the application, and Centrelink will come to you for back payments. They will not back pay you if you are not officially started. So again, going back to Noel's point, Noel, you're making too many good points here because I keep
so are you. So are you.
The detail, the tiny kind of narky detail is incredibly important to know. And you are your own best advocate in learning this detail. And we've mentioned quite a few sources, but if you don't mind, Ian, I'd like to point out the Money Smart website, which is a government website, ASIC, and their glossary actually defines pretty well every word I've ever seen in the arena of retirement income. And they often have tiny case studies. So my best tip for people who are trying to better understand their situation is to look at Noel's Q&A, to look at the Money Smart case studies, to look at what the NSA writes, but don't stop there. Don't just read that thing. And it's like me trying to learn Italian. Don't just read the words. I actually have to practice saying them. So when you read Noel's case study of Martha and her $700,000 house and how that might work, do that sum pertaining to your situation. Run the sum for yourself and then look at it and say, do I need to act? Okay, deeming rates have changed. Do I need to act? Thresholds have changed. Might I now be eligible? Gosh, there's a change coming through on the Commonwealth.
Exactly, and look, this is. I'll just come in on that because you might remember during the COVID period, when the government was putting out money and saying we're giving it to concession card holders, just before the election they did that. You won't get back pay. If you went and applied for the card now and said, I'm now a pensioner, I'm now a Commonwealth Seniors Health Card holder, can I have the $250 that was promised before the election? You won't get it. But just go to some of the questions that are coming in now.
But can I just say something?
Sorry,
the
Noel.
best aged care resource is on my website, the Aged Care Calculator. You've got a calculator, a deeming calculator, and you can download these charts. So They're simple calculators I get. You know, they're just great. It's the best resource. Anybody thinking about
Australians are great for knowing things like, you know, all the people that play in their local football team or cricket team, or they know that the batting average of Don Bradman is 99.4, but they don't know the cut-off point for the pension that's going to affect them for the rest of their life. It's a reminder that we do need to have information. Now, this is some of the more of the questions coming through, and look, some really great information coming in from our more than 1,000 people online. Julie Incognito, I think that means Julie doesn't want her full name there. She says, Link has a financial information service with financial information services, and I've found them extremely helpful. Now is that Noel? They call them FISOs, don't they?
Yeah, they're great people. They're fantastic. I've done a few speeches with them. They're great. But it's a bit hard to make. They're very busy, so it's hard to get the appointment.
Get an appointment. So that's the demand and supply. And we should remember that the census came out yesterday, and they said, and I'll repeat this figure, there are more than 5 million baby boomers. So that's people born post 1946, 46 to 65. Yeah. So if you look at that group now, there's going to be a lot of people needing a lot of information coming through the system. So it's probably good to try and find out as much as you can. Look, here's another good question. Anthea says, if you've got cash at the moment, what's the best place to put it? And now that is an incredibly interesting question, because National Seniors offers a 11-month deposit at the moment. I think it's a bit over 2%, but we're talking about interest rates going up. It's a difficult one to answer, isn't it, Noel?
Well, to me, there's nothing like the index fund. An index fund can't go broke. It's paying 4.5% franked, you know, and it's a listed share.
Is that good for cash, though, Noel?
Well, how much cash do you need to keep? I mean, cash is expensive at 2%, so you should not keep any more cash than you need, or from which you can sleep at night. So if you've got $400,000 cash, you could keep $100,000, you know.
Right.
And now from June 30th, after 75, you can put the money into superannuation. And good superannuation funds have been returning 8 or 9% for the last decade. You know, having money in the bank in cash, to me, is high risk.
There's lots of questions coming in. Look, clearly this is a huge need, and we're not going to get through all of them today. But look, the questions coming through that are thick and fast. What if you don't own the property and the pension is your only income? I mean that's obviously a lot of people, because we heard before those figures. You've got a lot of people who rely entirely on the pension as their own source of income.
But you might get a rent allowance. So you might get a rent allowance, you know, things like that. Yeah.
Someone says here, is it better to take SAS? Now, I don't know what SAS is. SAS super pension, or roll over into another super fund? Would that be a state system, Noel?
I would think so. I don't know, but I would say it's a state system.
And often they were quite good, weren't they? Generous, the state system.
Yeah, it depends on the fund.
Depends on the fund. So once again, you really probably should try and get some advice. Now, look, we've had a lot of questions. We're not going to be able to get through to everyone today, but look, National Seniors and Household Capital are going to share their resources, and there will be a play after the session today. So we've got to remind people about that. And Noel, you've got resources on your website. So you go to Noel Whittaker, you go to Household Capital, you go to those sites that you were talking about, Kaye. You've got that site again, which is the Money Smart site. So it's really just a question of sitting down and preparing. But when should you start thinking about retirement? Noel, it's a bit like planting a tree, isn't it? Don't they say the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago?
Yes, I mean, the better you can plan for retirement, the better it generally is. It's very important. Yeah.
Another quick question for Household Capital. What's the score on your home equity? Is that limited somewhere?
Sorry, I missed that, Ian. I think you cut out.
But... is there a percentage limit that you can draw?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's highly regulated. You can only borrow a small amount of the value of your home. And look, we've also got a calculator on our website that people can go in and just plug in their scenario and see what's available, depending on their age, the value of the property, and so forth. It's very regulated. Yeah.
Well, it's been an extraordinary fast session. I know we're coming through towards the end of it shortly, but I mean, I think what we recognise is the things we've learned today, and we'll just go back to them, and that is that you've got to know the rules, and the other thing you've got to know is that the rules are changing. I mean, we've just talked about this morning some on July the 1st. Noel, it's almost July the 1st, so it's a good idea.
Sure is. That's on Friday, isn't it? July the 1st
right.
Is Friday, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And is there something you need to know immediately about what's happening this Friday? Is there a sort of an alarm bell ringing for people Friday?
I don't think so. I think it's all good. I mean, after 30 June, you can contribute to superannuation to age 75. And I think that's the big one. Plus, as we know, the Commonwealth Seniors Health Card ought to be going up. And people should be aware that that income of $144,000 includes deemed amounts from your super, which is paying you a pension. But given that nobody can have more than 1.7 million approximate in pension mode, there's a couple, that's about $75,000. You've still got another 60, 70,000 over. So almost everybody can get it now.
Here's another one.
Age pension thresholds are changing on the 1st of July. So if you were close to getting entitlement, have a look.
Yep. For a couple, it's now 915500, and a single, it's 609250. Yeah.
And that's for people that own their home, and it's different for people that don't own
That's
their
a
home.
homeowner, yes. If you're non-homeowner, if you're a non-homeowner, for a couple, it's gone up to 1.14 million. Oh, yeah.
Mm. And look, there's another question here, which I know we're almost out of time, but it's a very important one. If you live in a retirement village, can you get rental assistance? That depends, doesn't it?
Depends on the retirement village, yes. That's a very specialised question.
Another quick one. I want to make sure that my home is there for our security for a better nursing home. That's something that we should almost do another session on, isn't it? How do you keep getting best in aged care in case you need it?
Yeah, look, I will just say on the aged care system, which is so complicated, we do a lot of work with people going into aged care or people wanting in-home care. I know we haven't even touched on that subject, but I've just had to put my mum through the whole in-home care, aged care system. And again, if we're talking about what entitlements can you get, you could be self-funded at home and have the ability to actually access in-home care benefits. That's a whole nother topic, but I would just say that, again, that's an area where there are benefits that people perhaps should explore. And you can also obviously use your home equity to help fund into aged care. We do that all the time with powers of attorney, and often it's just a drip feed payment. But again, complex, you need advice on that area.
It's extremely complex. It's the most complex thing I know about.
We've got a very complicated social security and aged care system and a very complicated superannuation system, and that's why today's been so valuable for people. And I would just love to say I want to thank you particularly for your time, our panellists, and I also want to thank all of our wonderful more than 1,000 people online, and we're getting lots of lovely comments coming through saying thank you, very interesting session. Another one saying, and I think this is the message, I've got a lot of homework to do. So this
you have
the longest walk starts with one step.
That's right. Another one saying happy new financial year. Obviously that's a good time. And look, remember that we are coming into a new financial year. It's a wonderful time to start doing the homework. It's a wonderful time to start checking your what you'd call your financial health, a sort of checkup of your financial health. And we're going to help you with all the information that we can provide. So we will provide the information. Everyone that's been online today is going to get sent through information that will help them do the work. And I just think it's been great. And I just last comment from everyone there before we go. We'll go backwards this time. Noel, what's your final comment for everyone?
Well, I think people don't know what they don't know. So the more research you can do, the better. And
let's hear from our other two panelists, Fiona Navarro from Household Capital. Fiona, what's your thought for the day?
I concur about the information, and I would say don't live in a really expensive house if you are feeling like you're not having the life that you should. There are alternatives, and again, it's about education. Just check it out. Yeah.
And Kaye?
I'll go back to knowledge, and I'll call it your secret power. So don't just keep up to date, read, go to the websites, take it on board, do your own sums so you're a good partner in decision making. And I really hope that helps everybody sleep better at night.
Well said.
All right.
Well said.
Well, look, as the Chief Advocate of National Seniors, I just want to say that it's been wonderful to be part of today's session. We are advocating for a whole range of things at National Seniors: better housing, better pension system, allowing pensioners to do more work without them having so onerous penalties and paperwork at the moment. So we've got a lot of things there. If you want to find out more about National Seniors, go to nationalseniors.com.au. We've also had one person say this is all a bit scary. Remember, it's not scary. It's not confusing. You just have to do the homework and you'll be helped, and we're here to help you. All right, look, thanks again for your time. I'll say goodbye now. Get another one. Sessions, please. All right, I think we'll have to do it again, but it's been wonderful. So I'm sorry my camera didn't work, but there's a picture there, and I'll just say goodbye now. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Thanks, Ian.